Hey, thanks for coming to 1500ESPN.com, the same one that's on these mic flags. Yes, his name's Matthew Collar. My name's Derek Wetmore. We just got done watching the Vikings snap their 4-game losing streak. Matthew, we'll talk about special teams contributions, the defense, and also we never talk about this guy often enough. We don't talk about Sam Bradford often enough, but I thought he made some excellent throws in Sunday's win. Before we get started, please subscribe, 1500 ESPN Twin Cities. It's super easy. Now on to the video. I'll start with Bradford because I love talking about quarterbacks. He's a guy that's not getting a ton of credit for the fact that the Vikings are now 6-4. I guess 5-4 in his games, but I thought he really made some strong throws in the win, Matthew, especially the first touchdown to Adam Thielen is the one that stands out of my mind like, wow, we're not going to talk about that enough.
I think each week we have a throw from Sam Bradford where we go, ooh, boy, that was a good one.
That's a big boy throw.
And, you know, they've had to go to this really limited offense because of just what they're dealing with on the offensive line. But it's been amazing to me the amount of pressure that opponents have put on Sam Bradford, the amount of hits that he's taken, how few times he has turned the ball over.
Yeah.
That is really something. Now, today he gets strip sacked. That is not his fault. That is TJ Clemmings' fault 100%. There was nothing Sam Bradford could do on that one. Clemmings was, once again, a turnstile, which it does amaze me that they continue to go back to him. Instead of the request of Alex Boone was to play tackle after last week, which really says something about how he feels about some of the other linemen, I think. But I thought Jeremiah Sarles was fine, and maybe it would be a better choice to go to Boone because Clemmings, once again, was very poor. But to your point about Sam Bradford, that was a big boy throw, and for most of the game, he operated the offense and did just enough to get the offense on the board. I wouldn't say it was one of his best performances, but it was efficient from him. They still couldn't run, but 20 for 28 is very solid.
3 yards a carry in the running game, so the Vikings are still going to have to get it done through the air. I just want to quick ask you before we move on about the hit that Patrick Patterson laid on Sam Bradford. Earlier in the game, the Vikings had done a couple laterals in a wildcat formation. Bradford ends up with the ball and throws it to the end zone intended for Adam Thielen. They got a DPI on the play. Okay, great. In another wildcat formation, Patrick Patterson basically goes up to Bradford and just lays him out as he's standing out there far wide. I'm perfectly okay with that hit. I think Patrick Patterson's well within his rights, and he should be He basically questioned the call. He made it look like he was beside himself that they called a flag on that play. I'm kind of with Patrick Patterson on that play. I think if you're going to line up Bradford out wide, and he should lose his quarterback protection. Am I crazy on that?
No, you are not crazy on that at all. If he is a wide receiver on a play where they could reasonably throw him the ball, they're not going to because it's Sam Bradford, but where they could throw him the ball, then I look at that as he's a blocker if they run it, and Patrick Patterson has every right to knock him down. And it's not the NFL's fault or not Sam Bradford's fault or anybody's fault, Patrick Patterson's fault, that Sam Bradford's not real tough. I mean, when it comes to going up against a defender to block him, Bradford is backpedaling a little bit and gets run down. But it's nobody's fault other than Sam Bradford's, I guess, that he's not tough. So if he's going to be a football player and he's going to be out in that position, then I don't see any reason he can't be hit. I think the bigger picture conversation is the refereeing today was as bad as I've ever seen it in any game, and I've seen a lot of really bad refereeing.
You were going after him on Twitter today.
This was one where somebody should maybe lose their job or get suspended or fined or something. I mean, there were so many bizarre personal fouls, defensive pass interferences. Also, what we'll go overlook, too, because we'll talk only about penalties and things like that get called, is that they had to have 2 plays get overturned on challenges.
Yeah.
They got them so wrong on plays that were obviously touchdowns both times for the Vikings that Mike Zimmer had to use both of his challenges. No, those weren't really that close of plays or plays that should be really that hard to call. Matt Asiata's arms clearly over into the end zone. There's a guy standing right there who should be able to see it.
Right.
Adam Thielen's maybe was a little more tricky, but that's one you should be able to make. The refereeing was a huge issue today. I saw Bruce Arians said he wasn't going to talk about it. Probably best for his pocketbook.
That's right.
I know that Tom Johnson was upset about a call at the end of the game where he just followed through and hit the quarterback, didn't do anything dirty, and ends up with a penalty.
Yeah.
It was a storyline throughout the game, and if the Vikings had lost, I think, or I guess it doesn't really matter who won or lost. Both sides today could say, what were those guys thinking?
Have a beef with it. Yeah, to wrap up with our other 2 storylines, it's 2 home runs that the Vikings hit. Cordarrelle Patterson with the kick return touchdown, and Xavier Rhodes, perhaps just as impressively, the interception return touchdown for it was like 101 yards, I want to say. What'd you see from Xavier Rhodes? Because he also had that other deep diving interception, but the pick six was really a game changer for me.
Interceptions are always going to be the thing that stands out. I mean, there's no question that when it comes to the highlight reels and what everybody who watches the night games will see run over and over again is the interceptions. And now Rhodes explained after the game that he saw that Captain Munnerlyn, I think it was Munnerlyn, somebody else had inside coverage, so he went to the outside, and then the ball essentially came right to him, and he made a big play. And then on the deep ball, that's just really playing center field and catching the ball. Or, I mean, that's not – center field more belongs to safeties, but it's just catching the ball. It's a terrible throw by Carson Palmer. I think what Xavier Rhodes does on a weekly basis, though, is takes down opponents' top receivers, or if he's not matched up where he's going to follow somebody all over the field. He did not follow Larry Fitzgerald all over the field today, but he takes away that side of the field. Nearly every single week, whatever they ask him to do, he does it at the highest level.
Yeah.
And he's been maybe now the defensive MVP.
I believe I saw Pro Football Focus tweet out the stat that he allowed a 0.0 passer rating on throws his way, which, sounds about right.
Well, I noticed another stat from Football Outsiders this week that number one wide receivers against the Vikings average the fewest number of yards per game of anyone in the NFL.
Sure.
Now, if you look at this week, in the first half, Larry Fitzgerald did a great job at 53 yards, but he ends with only 63 yards. So we thought, Fitzgerald's going to light them up and so forth, and then they just locked it down in the second half. And to me, that's the story of the game, is David Johnson only gained 14 yards in the second half, and Larry Fitzgerald only gained 10 yards. And Carson Palmer was not sacked in the first half, but was sacked 4 times in the second half. That saved the game and probably saved the season for the Vikings.
Sure. Cordarrelle Patterson. He brought one back to the house. I'd like to see him get a little more involved in offense, replace some of those 2- and 3-yard runs with some screen passes to Cordarrelle Patterson.
Well, before we talk about that, I mean, you've got in-depth reporting on Cordarrelle Patterson's socks.
The scoop.
Right. I thought you'd want to start with what you gained in knowledge from the locker room.
Well, my good friend Brace took a photo, and it's on Twitter. You've maybe seen it by now, but of Cordarrelle Patterson rocking the Cordarrelle Patterson socks. I thought that was pretty funny. I asked Patterson about it, and he said he thought they brought him good luck, but they're socks he's had for about 4 months that he just hasn't.
Well, maybe it has been good luck. That's when his career has turned around.
Here's where it gets tricky, though, because he wore them in pregame warm-ups, and then he wore them in the first half. He took them off for the second half. He changed into regular socks, and the first time he touched the ball in the second half is when he took it to the house. So I'm contending.
Was he asked to take them off?
I think that was the insinuation, that the coach maybe said, hey.
Or the league. No fun league.
That's true, too. It wasn't clear to me who asked, but the insinuation from talking to a couple of people was that Patterson was indeed asked to take off the socks. And then, hey, the first time he touches the ball after that, he brings it back to the house. So
I'll say this. A man who wears himself on his own socks, that's a guy who loves himself.
Okay.
And how are you going to love anybody else if you can't love yourself?
Well, as I contended, too, Michael Jordan got to wear Jordan brand. Why are we giving Cordarrelle Patterson a hard time for wearing his own face on his socks? Oh, purple socks.
I'm all about that.
With the
In fact, I've got my own picture. No, I don't. I really don't. But it'd be amazing if I did.
I would end this video right there.
That would be mic drop, walk off if I had my own face right here. Although I do have this. So we all wear ourselves on our press credentials.
Am I being crazy to think that Patterson should get a little more involved in the offense? I kind of like the fact that they replaced some of the run game with screens to Patterson and the short crossing stuff for Stephon Diggs. I think that's a viable substitute.
Sometimes things play out kind of how you think they will, and sometimes you're really shocked. Today I wasn't really shocked to see Adam Thielen get a little more of the ball, to see Patterson used a bit on those underneath routes, and Diggs not as much because Patrick Peterson was following him around.
Sure.
Use him more, or if they use him the way they did today, if he's getting 5 or 6 targets a game, that's 5 or 6 opportunities for him to break a big play like he did on that 30-yard catch. And if he does that, that's all you need from him. I don't think you want to be a guy with Patterson. I don't think you want him to be a guy that you're always relying on.
Sure.
Because there were also a couple plays where, I mean, he's probably to fault for Sam Bradford almost throwing an interception. That was 2 different times where he probably could have made a better play on the ball, and he didn't. And So I think if you're going to him too often, you're probably going to get yourself in trouble. But as a player, as a role player, if he hits a home run every once in a while and gets a big play, then that's exactly what you want from him.
Sure. Vikings finally snapped their losing streak at 4 games. They're now 6-4. And as you mentioned, I don't think you should say it as I kind of just glossed over it because it surprised me, but save their season. Fair to say, if they lose this game, I mean, they're still within striking distance of the NFC North, but it's a big difference if you lose 5 games in a row versus you kind of righted this ship. We might look back at this and say, that 4-game skid, they lose today. I think that's a different story at the end of the year.
If they drop this one, I don't care about where they stand in the standings or playoff odds that might still have them in or anything else. If they had lost today, there would be zero belief that this team could turn it around at all. That even if they did solve some of their problems or maybe it was just close games or whatever else, if they had lost today, I would never believe it. That a team that could lose 5 in a row could bounce back.
Yeah.
We have historically seen some teams bounce back from losing 4 in a row, so I can buy it. Now, here's the thing, though. These results, not really the most sustainable. There's still some problems here. I know in the locker room, guys were really relieved and thrilled to have this win, and they should be. Don't take anything away from the fact that they won the game, and guys had to make big plays. But if you're relying on a 100-yard touchdown for an interception and a 100-yard special teams touchdown on a kick return to win you a game, and at the end with the offense cannot move the ball whatsoever, you're giving up a strip sack and you can't run it all. I mean, you're relying so much on your defense to do everything and other people to score for you, your defense and special teams. It's not a sustainable model to be a really great team. So somehow they're going to have to be more dangerous offensively in order to go anywhere significant. And that's kind of still a tall order considering their offensive line is really, really not good.
Yep. We'll see what they can do in a short week. Thanksgiving week at the Motor City Kitties, I believe, on Thursday. We'll be covering that game from 1500 ESPN Studios. Until then, for Vikes Insight, Matthew Collar, I'm Derek Wetmore. Thanks for watching. No.
No. Oh, no. It's just the white.